Bordeaux style wines in South America. At that time, you know, was like 10 wineries in Chile who start around Santiago, the main city, and was when our family history started, you know, surrounded by the wine world. After that, you know, as a main icons, we always remember when in 1970, my great grandfather Pedro, he introduced in Paris in the famous shop Fouchon in Paris. He went there and he talked with the guy in the shop, you know, searching to sell his wines, Undurraga wines, the family name wines. And the guy there in the wine shop asked my grandfather, you know, I don't know, we never sold Chilean wines here, but you can come back in a couple of days more, and I will ask with my boss, and we'll see if we can sell your wines here. So he come back after a couple of days to the wine shop back, you know, and he saw the bottles that he lived there as a samples, put it already, you know, in the front of the wine shop. And the guy told, yeah, we will be happy to sell your wines here. And that was one of the first steps when the Chilean wines was exported from Chile to overseas, you know, at that time, already almost 50 years ago, you know. So times ran, and in 2006, we decided with my father and my brothers and my sister to start a new project, a new winery. Is in that picture where you saw there, you know, in Los Lingues. Los Lingues is an area in the Colchagua Valley, just 190 miles south of Santiago, our capital city. We planted this beautiful vineyard in the bottom of the Andes Mountain, and we started with Koyle in 2006. Our first wine was sold, you know, in 2010. So already 10 years, times run very quick. Let's go for the next. Thank you, Cristobal. So as a main, you know, as a main base, since the beginning, our focus was put over the quality. So the focus of our life, you know, is to see this winery in a very long term. So talking today long term for me is all about respect for the nature. If we want to keep, you know, the sense to make business, you see, if we can see this as a business, an economical unit, you know, the ecosystem and all who surround our place, the typical word terroir. Terroir, what's that mean? Terroir is all that surrounds us. So it's the soil, it's the climate, it's the people, you know, and it's all the interaction between these three parts. The base for the quality wines are looking for the expression of that terroir. So we took the biodynamic as a basic technique, you know, to learn about the place. We started doing biodynamic in 2008. I've never been doing biodynamic viticulture before. I was reading, was practicing organic agriculture at home in our orchard, you know, but it's so different when you start, you know, with a vineyard, with a whole project, you know, thinking in that way to respect the place. Biodynamic for us is been a path of learning process. In this learning process, of course, is the individual view of each person, you know, over his own territory. In this case, you know, our vineyard, our whole ecosystem here in Los Lingues, and that path, you know, from 2008 till today, 12 years, been a way to learn about this, been a way to start looking, you know, the whole place to finally make better wines. When you have the time, you know, when you have the time and you put all your effort, you know, to be more sensible with the place, that will give you, you know, finally all that advantage to finally understand how to make better wines. That for me being the big advantage when we're talking about biodynamic agriculture. Here we've been putting, you know, all of our effort to understand the place, and finally that communication between the more terrestrial, more earthy way and all the cosmic that surround us, you know, that balance between everything are permit us, you know, to have that communication with the nature, finally looking for that entire process, you know, who care about the cultivation, the vinification, and finally, of course, to sell our wines, you know. I think one of the key issue in this is that communication that we can make between the whole cycle, you know, from the viticulture, jumping to the vinification in the winery, and finally finishing here with the sales team, you know. So that ability to communicate what we are doing is a big issue for us, you know. Vamos con la próxima, Cristóbal. Gracias. So in that way, when we're talking about to choose a place, you know, and how to understand that in this diapositiva, I don't know how you say, slide. But in this
slide.
Yeah, in this slide, we can see where is located the winery and why we choose, you know, the place. Finally, key things for me always was climate, was soil, was minerals. Why minerals are a key factor for me? I always talking about, and I think we are all hearing about minerality in the wine, and sometimes it's a word that is very useful, you know. So how to understand minerality? So first of all, minerals are part of the rocks. So in my path of learning, you know, I always say to my friends or in any wine presentation, if you want to make a good quality wine, first of all, you have to see that the place have rocks. I saw that in Bordeaux, I saw that in Napa, I saw that in Hunter Valley, I saw in Barolo, in Burgundy, in wherever you are, you know. Always the best places have a kind of rock. Why? Because those rocks could be more calcareous, could be more alluvial, more volcanic. Rocks will give to the vines the exact amount of minerals, first of all for his balance, and also to make that characteristic of the wine. So a key factor for that, for me, is the kind of rocks that you will have. In our case, that rocks are the volcanic rocks that we have here in the vineyard. Volcanic rocks will give that always will be like your identification, you know, your sign of this one is coming from here, it's coming from Los Linges, is your identity. The minerals, of course, will be more expressed if you're doing in a more natural way. If you work in a conventional, more than conventional, I always say a chemical agriculture, you know. Chemical agriculture means you are using a lot of chemical fertilization that first of all will teach your vines in a lazy way, because lazy Why? Because those vines will always be putting in the mouth the foods, you know, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, all the microelements will give in the mouth so those vines will not be able to, or will be not, they will not need to find that minerals in the soil. In that way, chemical wine, chemical vineyard will always be more standard. So when we trying to find and to be out of a standard wine, what we are, this morning I was talking with a friend, and a friend who told me, okay, today there are too many, for example, Cabernet Sauvignon from Colchagua. And he told me, your Cabernet Sauvignon is a Cabernet Sauvignon from Los Lingas, from Koyle. Is very, very different with your neighborhood. Is have his own expression, and it's always what we want, because in a world of thousands of different labels of wines, a lot of good wines, how to be different? Be your own, be your own, be your own place, of course, and trying to do as better you can, you know. In our case, that effort over the, first of all, the vines, you know, and the ability of the vines to find that unique minerals in the soil will be the identification for finally the ones from Koyle. And that's a very important point, you know, to understand. A vine who grow more naturally, where you push that vines to grow naturally, those vines will be able to go deeper in the soil. So when we're talking deeper in a chemical vineyard, you generally you will have the roots in the first meter of soil, because all we have in there today, drop by drop irrigation, or even if you are not drop by drop and you are dry farming, and you are putting all the chemical fertilization in the over the surface, you know, those vines will be not pushed to go down. When you have a big warehouse, you know, we're talking 2, 3, 4, 5 meters underground, where the vines can go. The vines can go even more than 10 meters underground. And all that warehouse underground is a big place for that vines to find what they need. Vines are intelligent, they are alive. And if you give that freedom for that vines, they will go further, you know, and they will go further. Finally, you are doing a healthy agriculture. It's a passion to do that. It's the way to think in the future. But finally, what is the result? Quality, uniqueness, balance, sustainability, all these words that today are used for a quality wine, you are finding as a result of this work. So that mainly, you know, our view over the soil. The main characteristic of our vineyard here is we have 80 hectares, so it's around 150 acres. The total place where we are here in the mountains is 800 hectares, also of ecological reservoir. We call ecological reservoir. We have in the mountains, you know, to keep it that ecosystem. We are lucky, yet we are very lucky because we are surrounded just by native forest. So that all that helped, you know, for the expression of the place. We have mainly planted red varieties, so just red varieties here in Los Lingas. We also have in San Antonio the vineyard where we produce our Koyle Costa La Flor, but that's in the coast. All those varieties are mainly from several regions. So I always try to work by region or by all regions. So we're talking about Bordeaux varieties as Cabernet Sauvignon, Carmenere, Malbec, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, someone that is escaping. After we can talk about Rhone varieties like Syrah, Grenache, Mourvedre, Carignan, a touch of Italy, as we have some Sangiovese, we have Tempranillo. So finally, for me, when we decided to plant all those cepages, for me was to try to create a kitchen where you have a lot of spices to cook. You know, when you have more things to cook, you are able also to make a more unique and different wine. Vamos con la próxima, Cristóbal. So finally, you know, that main characteristic of the place you can see here in this slide is we have one vineyard separated in 3 main terraces. In total, in the vineyard, we have 87 different units of micro terroir. What does that mean? 87 different units for vinification that we start working in 2008 with a soil expert when we was able to separate in these 150 acres of a vineyard 87 different units. Those units can go from a quarter of acre going up to 3 acres or 4 acres, you know. So mainly separate by type of soil and exposition. So that will give, of course, separate by variety, by cepage. So all those 87 different units, we are making the same vinification since 2010. Of course, year by year, we are introducing new views, new techniques. Years are more warm or cooler or driest or more humid. Every year will be a different vintage. Every year will be his own identity. We change every year. We change. We all change. Vines as well change, and we are part of that terroir of expression. So the soil presents a matrix, a complex of basaltic rock. Basalt is always coming from volcanic areas. So in different states of decomposition and size of rocks, mainly as fragmented alterites. Alterites is a kind of a rock that easily crack, you know, that will give the balance for that vigor, productivity, and quality of each different terrace. I will explain you that easily. First terrace in the bottom part of the vineyard. Second terrace is 100 meters over that, and the third terrace is the upper part of our vineyard. So basically, in the first terrace, we have more clay. It's more rich soil. More clay will give a little bit more production, a little bit more vigor in the vines, and a more fruity quality. When we're going up to the second terrace, it's less clay and more rocks. So I start always first terrace. Rocks will be a kind of average of a tennis ball rock. If we're going to the second terrace, less clay and bigger rocks. Rocks will be like a size of I don't know, a soccer ball, you know. So we're playing in sports. And when we're going to a third terrace, we are having very low clay, so between 5 to 10% of clay, and a bedrock underground. So between 20 to 40 centimeters of soil, we have all a big bedrock. So it's that rock that you can see, for example, there in that picture, is that rock of is kind of blue rock inside. It's a beautiful rock. You can see also that color of rock in one of the labels of our wines in the Cerro Basalto. It's one of the wines that we make as a cuvée. Vamos con el próximo, Cristóbal. Just quick talking about certifications, mainly, you know, as a form to help our clients to understand. And I always say this was mainly pushed by Ed. Ed was a big helper for us, you know, to put the certifications in the wines. We started certificate this vineyard in 2008 with the EcoCert and Demeter in organic and biodynamic, but never been focused to put it on the labels, you know. So already wines from 2013 from Koyle was all certificated biodynamic. We didn't use the Demeter certification. When we start working with it in 2017, he pushed us, you know, to put the certification. For me, my focus was always to make quality wines, and I personally and deeply believe that the way to do it organically and biodynamic was the best way to obtain better quality. But also, Ed told me, if you're talking about organic and biodynamic, people will ask, will tell you, you know, for example, okay, this Koyle Costa, that you're talking that the wine is organic, and they can see in the back, yes, it's organic. Sometimes when you're talking about organic or biodynamic, you know, for example, here we have the Cabernet Sauvignon Royal. Okay, it's biodynamic, yes, it's Demeter. Okay, yeah, it's Demeter. Sometimes people today, with the whole information that we have, and you don't have the certifications, they asking 2 times, is how deeper is, or is true? There are many people talking about organic. There are many people talking about biodynamic. Sometimes they don't have certifications, and they are not. They are doing in his own way. Finally, so to be certificated, you have a third-part opinion that you are doing well. And also, for me, one of the big issues to be certificated before to put it in the bottles, I always take especially the Demeter certification as a consultant, because they used to come once or twice a year to our vineyard and the winery, and there was critic. They was pretty critic about to try to find where are your error, you know. So finally, each visit for you was a push to do it better in the Demeter. You know, we work with a consultant, but to have that critic view over your effort, you know, we are learning about it. We have not 50 years doing biodynamic farming, you know, like in German, you have some guys who started already in the 1924 when Rudolf Steiner started that, you know, there are some very old farms, you know, almost 100 years, because the first farms started in 24, 25, 26 in Europe. We have just a little bit more than 10 years. We are in a path of learning every year, you know, and that learning is transmitted also to a new generation. So I always say to understand, for me, first time when we filled horns with manure, you know, to make the first 500 homeopathic preparation, was a kind of this is special, you know. This is a lot of fun. We believe in the effect of that, what the 500 will give in the energy over the field. It's a path of learning and see and feel, but most strange things to feel it. You know, you ask why I'm filling cows with manure. I started doing that with my kids. You know, that time it was 5, 6, 7 years, and for my kids it's normal. It's part of the way to help the land. You know, and of course when you start so young, you will have a different view over that, and you will have a different understand over that. Finally, for me, the faith, the view to see the way that we are working is a very important way. To believe what we are doing is important way, and that will help. That will be an extra push for the life of the place as well. Vamos con la próxima, Cristóbal. So here we will start talking about the wines, and when we're talking about the 3 different terraces in Los Linges, we'll start talking about first of all, about the 2 range. I want to introduce you the different range of Koyle. So quickly, I will put here in front. We'll try to help for you to view the wines there. So we have here, that is the Gran Reserva range. Yep, with the orange cap and the orange sun in there. So this our first and second terrace wine. So mainly first terrace, and part of the second terrace will go, the grapes will go in this wine. Our Koyle Royal Koyle Royal range, we have Cabernet Sauvignon, Carmenere, and Syrah. In the Koyle Royal, grapes will came from the second and the third terrace. So we're talking more about complexity. We're talking more about rocks. We're talking a little bit more about minerality in the Royal. So grapes came from the same vineyard, 100% single vineyard. Grapes are all working the same way. We mainly work vinification. So let's start talking from the beginning. The vines are all pruning as a double gouillot in our state. The vigor of the vines will be in the way of the place is giving. So as I told you, first terrace have more clay, so a little bit more vigor. Second terrace, less clay, a little bit more rocks, less vigor. Third terrace, low clay, a lot of rock, even lower vigor. So in that way, yield per vine will be more in the first terrace, will be half in the second terrace, and even less in the third terrace. So that will give also concentration in the wines. So start talking about the Gran Reserva range. Grapes here, first terrace, part of the second terrace. These grapes will give the base of a very round wine, beautiful concentration, you know, a little bit more fruity because that clay effect will give a little bit more fruity feeling over the wines. Grapes here, the vines here will produce more or less 1.5 kilos per vine for the Gran Reserva. And that balance for me in the aging will be after that balance to be released, the wine will be landing, will be ready after 14, 16 months. So in the Gran Reserva, we're talking about of aging of 14, 16 months, always in used barrels. Here we don't use any new barrel. And that's also interesting point. Why don't use new oak for the Gran Reserva? Because when we have clay immediately will give a little bit more structure in the fruit, in the grapes, and after in the wine. So when you have more structure, you don't need for me, the new oak will give, of course, a touch of more oaky note, but I never find looking for that, but will also give a lot of tannins coming from the oak. And I never want those tannins, new oak tannins, in the Gran Reserva grapes, because they already have his own structure of tannins, the tannic structure. You catch me? You understand that? Thank you, guys. And in the Royal range, coming from the second and the third terrace, we have less yield per vine. Less yield per vine will mean more concentration, more minerality mainly in the Koyle Royal, and that more complexity and concentration and minerality will permit us to go in further in time of aging. So here we are talking about an average of 18, 20 months of aging, and using some new oak, some new barrels in the Koyle Royal. Here we're talking about 10, 15% of new barrels every year for this range. And that will be mainly the two difference between these two range. After we'll talk about each of the wines. So let's start talking about our Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon here in our property is the main cepage. Here we're talking about around 50% of the grapes that we have are Cabernet Sauvignon in Los Lingues. I always used to blend attach. When I talk to you about why to have 13 different red varieties in here, is because I believe that ability to blend cepage will give more complexity. So, for example, Tempranillo in this wine will give always, you know, a little bit more structure. Will help to make the structure of the Cabernet Sauvignon. the Petit Verdot as well. The Petit Verdot always will give structure and acidity in the wines, beautiful freshness. The Malbec will give, from the first terrace, will always give a touch of flower notes, more flowering, you know, so that freshness that the flowers give. Malbec is always a lot of violet notes from here, from Los Linges. So basically, you know, blending is one of my signs in my wines. I always try to blend as at least, you know, 5%, 7%, 10% of different cepage will give for me in the wines, even if it's a 85, 80, 87 or 90% variety, will be the pepper over the meat, you know, like that's that touch over the food. In this case, wine is a food. I always say, and will give that personality in the wine. And we're going to the next wine, Cristobal, the Carmenere. Well, in the slide is the Cabernet again, but let's talk about Cabernet and Carmenere, both varieties. Both Cabernet Sauvignon and Carmenere are Bordeaux varieties, coming from the same family, Carmenere and Cabernet Sauvignon. Carmenere is always a little bit more smooth than the Cabernet. It's a late ripe variety, Carmenere. Here, Carmenere. So here you can see how the Carmenere ripe. Carmenere is always more smooth. Spiciness you can find easily in the Carmenere. You know that spicy notes over the Carmenere that will be a sign. It's a key thing over the Carmenere that maybe you will be asked in your markets. Carmenere from Chile is easily to find two different kind of Carmenere, overripe or over green. A lot of very green Carmenere. Why? Because Carmenere is a very sensible cepage for the chemical nitrogen. If you use nitrogen in the Carmenere as a fertilization, that nitrogen will give to the vines a lot of vigor, a lot of green part. That expression of greenness in the Carmenere will be always like those notes of green pepper, you know, green bell pepper, you know. That's not very tasty. You can have a spiciness as a mint note, or we always say Carmenere from Los Linges, from Koyle, will be a big expression of the native forest that we are surrounded. So it's a variety very sensible to catch the aromas from the place. The tannins in the Carmenere are very soft always. So it's a wine who is silky, very drinkable. I love Carmenere for any kind of Italian food, like risottos, pastas, pizzas. Love also for Indian food. Any spicy food are pairing beautifully with the Carmenere. So let's keep going, Cristobal. We'll go over the two up. We'll go over the white, our Koyle Costa La Flor. So let's talk first of all about this beautiful draw here in the label. That is the Koyle flower. So Koyle, I introduced that. Koyle is this beautiful flower that we have here. We took this native flower who grew up here in the mountains where we have the vineyards. We took this beautiful flower as icon, you know, part of this proud of our place is what is surrounding us. It's a native flower from Chile. We find that it's a beautiful, and the name sounds good, basically. And we took that flower in the white, in the Sauvignon Blanc, because flowers is always more pairing with that freshness, you know. This Sauvignon Blanc came from a different vineyard. It's not the vineyard that we have here. It's my brother-in-law vineyard in the coast, in San Antonio. San Antonio is just 10 miles from the coast. It's a vineyard also working biodynamically, but we don't have the certification. So it's certified organically. It's a very special wine. I'm very happy, as I say to Ed, we did the first vintage of Koyle Costa in a way to learning about the terroir. 2018 was the first vintage that we did this wine. 2019 is the second vintage that we just are releasing in the market. 19 was scored by Robert Parker with 91 points. Parker. That's always helped to give a third part recognition over the wine. I'm so happy with Koyle Costa La Flor. It's extremely easy to drink wine. So I think one of my key things always, is to make easy drink wines. People want to drink wine. We are not making those beast wines. Sometimes you can drink just a touch, and after you are tired, it's over concentrated, it's over oaky, it's over ripe. One of the things that I always say, when you have balance in the vineyard, you will make balanced wine. It's like the food. It's the same. When you have good ingredients, you will be more able to make good wines. And that's a key thing, So the Sauvignon Blanc, in that way, key thing for me in the Sauvignon Blanc is how we make it. So it's mainly stainless steel fermentation. We have a 10% fermented in concrete eggs. So the concrete will give to the Sauvignon Blanc a more shape, a more soft palate, 3 to 4 months over the fermentation lease will give the wine, this structure to be able to go with foods. For me, when you have a 12.5 alcohol wine, it's very light. So imagine between 12.5 and 14 degrees. It's 1.5 degrees of alcohol. It's more than 10% of alcohol. So it's talking about drinkability. Mostly of the wines, the white wines in the old world are really lower in alcohol, So one of the key for me to obtain that balance. Natural acidity is a key thing for me. And a wine who finally will show that freshness, some lemon peel notes, some tropical notes that you can find in the Sauvignon Blanc, but mostly, energetic wine. So it's those wines that you easily drink and give you that taste. That mainly this. Let's go with the two Royals, Cryptol, the next two. Gracias. So we will start here with the Carmenere. So basically Carmenere, same as we was talking before, but here in the Royal, in the two Royal wines, Koyle Royal, we basically here, work with grapes coming from more rocky soils. So when we're talking about rocky soils, we always talk less than a kilogram or around a kilo per vine. So a kilo per vine means a lot of, I think, first of all, a wine that, if you compare with other wines in the market in the same price range, around 20 bucks per bottle, mostly of those wines in Europe, in the States, in Asia, came from very standard production, big vineyards, grapes coming from different places, good barrels maybe, but not coming from, these wines are a selection of blocks, finally. All this wine, even the Gran Reserva, Royal, is coming from same blocks every year. Those blocks are very low yield. That evolution of the wine, since the first Royal being made, 2008 from here, from Los Linges in the Cabernet, 2009 in the Carmenere, you have a traceability of quality in those wines. So here, again, we are always blending the notes that you can find in the Carmenere. I love those notes of cedar notes, the wet tobacco notes, the leaf of tobacco, you know, that you finally give always the Carmenere, especially in the evolution, you know, spicy notes always in the Carmenere, a very, very soft wine, lovely concentration, and easy to drink wine. Finally, is back, you know, to that characteristic. Here we have the, vamos al próximo, Cristóbal. We have the Cabernet Sauvignon Royal. Back to the Cabernet Sauvignon, you know, I think Cabernet Sauvignon is one of the, I always say, the king varieties, you know. Mostly of the people around the world are very related with Cabernet Sauvignon. Mostly of the people who go to a wine shop, a supermarket, or a restaurant, one of the cepages that people have in the mind is Cabernet Sauvignon. For me, as a family, you know, Cabernet Sauvignon was always in our DNA, because since my great-grandfather went to Bordeaux, he bring at that time Bordeaux varieties, and that Bordeaux varieties, the main variety was Cabernet Sauvignon. So my view over the Cabernet Sauvignon is, first of all, the vines that we have been here for more than 100 years. You know, they was in a process of adaptation. We, as a humans, also be adapted for that taste, for that way to work in the vineyard, for that way to work in the winery, in the cellar, you know. And finally, Cabernet Sauvignon, for me, in Koyle, you know, after a little bit more than 10 years making this wine, being one of the wines that I call one of the iconic wines from our winery. It's a wine who every year win a little bit more recognition by the wine writers. I personally believe that from 2015, we did a big jump in quality in the Cabernet Sauvignon. Why? Because all of the factors, vineyards are going older, vines and roots of those vines are going deeper, so more minerality, more uniqueness in the wine. And we also are going more fine-tuning. It's like that process of learning that we're talking in the beginning about biodynamic, or how the biodynamic teach you to have a more sensible view over your place, over your vinification, and also be able to taste the old vintages. So today, to sit down and be able to make a vertical tasting of the Cabernet Sauvignon Royal 2010, that was a mild year. 2012, that was a bloody warm year. 2014, that was a very tiny year yield because the frost. 2016, that was the coolest year in the last 20 years in the area. Or maybe 2017, that was a warm year, and very low production year, very low yield. Every year will be different. And we see that evolution, and of course it's a way to learn. We have that vision over the wines. You will be able always to find in the Koyle wines, 100% terroir wine. So my focus will always give to the market wines from this vineyard, the Sauvignon Blanc from the vineyard in the coast. So here the wines will not change every year from grapes coming from several growers in different parts. This year more here, the other year more there. I think that's also a key thing when we're talking about terroir wines. They are not much quality wines made in the, or maybe more than quality, the serious wines, finally, when I'm talking, that are made in with all that concept, you know, coming from a family owner, biodynamically working, in always coming from this special place, you know. I think we have a special product. I'm very proud to offer this to you guys and to talk about the wines. And thank you for the time. Huh?